welcome to Kings and Queens International online section. Today we'll be talking about a very important topic, genetics. But before I start, I would like you to call your friends, get your pen and your paper and listen. This is a very important topic called genetics. Topic that some students usually ask themselves question: why am I fair and this person is dark? Why am I tall and my sibling is short? Why do I resemble my parents but this person does not resemble his parents? So at the end of this topic, it will help to clarify so many questions you have been asking yourself. So we will start by explaining genetics. Genetics is defined as the scientific study of heredity and variation in living things. The scientific study of heredity and variation in living things. Remember, in your SS1, I taught about branches of biology, where I mentioned ecology, botany, zoology, etc. The same way, this genetics is a branch of what? Biology. I would say that genetics is the scientific study of heredity and the variation in living things. Remember, when we talked about living things, we are talking about those things that do what? That have life in them. Plants have life in them. If they do not have life in them, they will not germinate and they will not bear fruit. Some students, when you ask them a question about list those things that have life in them, they will keep mentioning animals. No, plants also do what have life in them. Back to what we are saying. The scientific study of heredity and variation in living things. Then what is this heredity? Heredity can also be called inheritance. It's the same thing. It's either you call it heredity or you call it what? Inheritance. When I say that heredity is defined as the transmission and the expression of characters. The transmission and the expression of characters or traits in organism from parents towards offspring. The transmission of character, that character that is being transferred from your parents to the offspring. And what are those characters? Fairness, shortness, baldness, sickle cell anemia, and etc. These are some of the characters that can be passed from parents towards offspring. So now we now look at variation. Variation is defined as the differences which exist between parents and the offspring. I repeat. Variation is defined as the differences which exist between parents and offspring. That difference that exists between you and your parents. It is true that we know that it's your parents that give birth to you. But when you stand and your parents stand, someone can distinguish, can say that this is this person's parents and this is the child. That difference that exists between the parents and the offspring is what we call what? Variation. So now we are going to look at some terminology, some terms associated with this genetics. Number one, genes. Genes are hereditary or basic units of inheritance. Hereditary or basic units of inheritance, they are located in chromosomes and are responsible responsible for transmission of that fairness, for the transmission of that darkness of a person, the tall, the short, from parents to offspring. What helps in transmission of that character from that parents to offspring is what we call genes. And that is why we say that it is the basic unit of inheritance. So we now talk about chromosomes. You see that chromosomes are rod or thread-like structures. Chromosomes are rod or thread-like structures found in the nucleus of the cell. Chromosomes are rod or thread-like structures found in the nucleus of the cell. The chromosomes house the gene. In your SS1, I explained about cell, where I talked about we draw so many diagrams. Let me clean this so that it will help me in explaining this chromosome better. Okay, let's take it for example that this is a cell. This is a cell. Inside a cell, you will see what we call nucleus. Nucleus. Inside the nucleus, you will see a rod or thread-like structure. A rod or thread-like structure, which we call the chromosomes. Then inside the chromosomes, you will now see what we call genes. And that is why we say that chromosomes house a gene. So coming from outside, for you to see a genes, you must make sure you will first of all see a cell, see the nucleus, see the chromosomes before you will now see the genes. So now we now look at another terminology is characters or traits. It's either you call it character or you call it trait. We say that character, these are the heritable attributes or features possessed by an organism. Something you can inherit that is possessed by an organism. And these characters can usually be passed from parents to what? Offspring. Like I said before, what are those characters? Fairness, tallness, not only in animals. There are some plants you will see, you know that they are of the same species. But you discover that some of them are tall and some of them are short. There is a character that helps in passing those things. Remember that thing that helps in passing that character from parents to offspring is what we call what? Genes. So now, we talked about gametes. Gamete is a matured cell which takes part in sexual reproduction. A matured cell which takes part in sexual reproduction. We have two types of gametes, the male gamete and the female gamete. The male gamete is what we call the spermatozoa, some call it sperm cell. And the female gamete is what we call what? The egg. Then we now look at another terminology. Before I talk about this hybrid, I want to talk about zygote. Zygote is a single cell formed as a result of the union of a male gamete with a female gamete. Remember, fertilization takes place in the fallopian tube. When the male gamete and the female gamete fuse together, what they will form is zygote. Please take note, I'm not embryo. They will first of all form a zygote, which will now later develop to an embryo. So now, a single cell that is formed from the fusion of the male gamete with the female gamete is what we call what? Zygote. So now, I'll be skipping something, but I will still come back to it. Because if I say, let me just explain this phenotype, genotype, you might not understand this so well. So let's come over to dominant character. Dominant character is a trait or character that is expressed in an offspring when two individuals with contrasting character or traits are crossed. Here, what we use to know a dominant character is that character that supersedes the other one. We usually know it as capital TT. But that of the recessive, we know it as small tt. I hope you're getting what I'm saying. So when I come over, we say that recessive character, these are characters or traits from one parent which is marked or does not produce the effect. It does not produce the effect. But we talked about the one that supersedes. We are talking about dominant. And that is why we use the uppercase TT in knowing the dominant character. And we use the lowercase TT in knowing the recessive character. So now, we will now talk about phenotype. Phenotype. Let me talk about homozygous and heterozygous before I will now come over to phenotype. Homozygous, an individual is said to be homozygous if they have two similar genes for the same character. Two similar genes can be capital TT and the small tt, having two similar genes. But when they have a pair of contrasting characters, that is T and T, it becomes heterozygous. But when they have this one, you see that they are not the same. We have the uppercase T and the lowercase t. This one is heterozygous, but the one that have the same similar character, whether it's uppercase or lowercase, we call it what? Homozygous. So now we are going to do some crossing to enable me to explain this phenotype and genotype. So we are going to do some crossing using homozygote and the heterozygote. Okay? This is a homozygote. The parent, we put the sign of multiplication. This is the heterozygote. For you to cross, you must put that gamete. Remember what I said about gamete. That gamete is a mature cell. A mature cell. And I said that we have two types of gamete. The male gamete, which is the spermatozoa, and the female gamete. So we even have it in plants. Plants have their own, we call that of the male, the pollen grains, and that of the female gamete, the ovaries. So now let's do some crossing. You spread it T, T. Put the sign of multiplication, T, T. So you now cross this one, you bring it with this one, it will now give you capital TT. Remember, dominant will come first before the recessive. So you use this one again, and cross this one, you get TT. Use this one, cross this one, get TT. Use this one, cross this one, and you get TT. Looking at it now, please pay attention. Drop your pen, your paper, all eyes on me so that you get what I'm saying. This phenotype and genotype is an exam question. So you have to pay attention to get everything that I'm doing, that I'm saying. So now looking at the board now, this person is tall. Capital T is there. This person is tall. In as much that we know that there is a trace of shortness in it. This person is also tall. And this person is also tall. In as much that we know there is a trace of shortness in them. So someone can ask you, phenotypically, what is the ratio? The ratio is what? Is 4. Because looking at them, they are all tall. Phenotypically, all the offsprings are tall. And that is why we say that phenotype is the sum total of all observable features of an organism, the ones you observe. Looking at them, you can observe that you will be seeing a trace of tallness in all the offspring. But when we talk about the genotype, we are talking about is the sum total of the gene inherited by both parents. This one you cannot see it. So someone can ask you, what is the genotypical ratio? The genotypical ratio is what? 2:2. Now, this one goes with this one. 1 plus 1 is what? 2. This one will now goes with this one. 1 plus 1 is what? 2. So the genotypical ratio is what? 2:2. But we talk about the phenotypical ratio, the observable features, the one you can see with your eye, we say that it is 4. So now, we now move over to this now. From this one now, we see that this first offspring, the first offspring after crossing is what we call filial generation. The first offspring after crossing is what we call what? Filial generation. And that is how we define filial generation. The offspring of parents makes up the filial generation. The first, second, and the third generation is known as the first, second, and third filial generation. So the simpler explanation of this is after the crossing, the offspring, we have the first filial generation, we have the second, we have the third, depending on how you are doing your crossing. So now I want to talk about hybrid. Hybrid is an offspring from a cross between parents that are genetically different but of the same species. You see the same thing. Genetically, what? Different. Genetically, they are different, but they are of the same species because we know that they are tall. Genetically, they are different. This one is not the same with this one. But they are the same species because we know that they possess that tallness in them. So we now move over to the last one we have on the board. And please take note before you skip my memory. A pair of these is what we call the alleles. A pair of the gene is what we call the alleles. So now we want to talk about mutation. Mutation is a change in genetic makeup of an organism. A change in the genetic makeup of an organism resulting in a new character that is inheritable. And this is where some of my students will be asking me question. Auntie, is it that when I start doing gym, when I start lifting heavy something and I get muscle, after acquiring that muscle, if I give birth, can I be able to pass that muscle to my offspring? The answer is no. You cannot pass it because you did not inherit it. You acquired it. You build it up. But when you automatically change the genetic makeup, okay, let me take it for example that you are short, and you went and then change the genetic makeup to see if you will be tall. Once you have changed it, you have changed everything about you. If you give birth, that your offspring will now have the new genetic makeup. And that is what we call mutation. It's a change in genetic makeup of an organism resulting in a new characteristics that is inheritable. That one you cannot pass it. But when you start lifting something, you start acquiring a building up of muscles. No, this one artificially you built it on your own. You are not born with it. But if you want to have it, you cannot go and change. When you change everything about you and you want your child to have it, once you have changed it, you cannot pass it to your what? To your world. Thank you for listening. In our next class, we continue with our discussion. We talked about the father of genetics. We talked about the Mendelian law. Thank you. God bless you. For more questions, you can still contact me on 081 3475 5018. I still remain your favorite biology teacher. Thank you so much.